AI in Action is brought to you by Alldus International, covering your business's staffing, consulting, and networking needs. Our host brings you the leading minds in AI, sharing their story, their success, and their advice. Focusing on fast-tracking you to the top, AI in Action cuts through the hype to help you kickstart your data science career. To listen to the latest AI in Action podcast, head over to www.alldus.com/podcast or subscribe via iTunes, Stitcher, or Google Podcasts.
Welcome to the AI in Action podcast. I'm your host, Mark Kelly. Today's guest is Kevin Smith, Head of Analytics and AI at Contovista. Kevin, delighted to have you on the show.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Mark. Likewise. Looking forward to our conversation.
Tell us a little bit about Contovista and a little bit more about, I suppose, how you're optimizing digital banking experience for people and, where's the world changed to now for that customer journey?
Contovista is a fintech company in Zurich. You might still consider us a startup. And what we do is we basically build data products for banks to enable them to better serve their customers in a digital world. So we have products where we talk directly to the end customer. So we integrate into the mobile banking, e-banking of the bank. One example is our personalized financial assistant. And at the same time, we have products which we offer to the bank's own analytics teams to allow them to use our customer insights also for their offline channels. So for example, client advisor, call center, and improve their targeting in campaigns. So these are the two areas that we're tackling. Maybe as to the customer journey and how we're enabling the banks. So with the products where we are client facing, our view of it is that most customers perceive banking, they're doing their own personal finances as a chore. And instead of trying to desperately convince them that doing this is actually super fun, we try to automate as much as possible. And we're working towards a situation where we only bother the customer if it's necessary. And this information that we're providing is accurate and very personalized to this user. So we know that for this user, this is now very relevant.
Kevin, can you tell me a little bit about the importance of UI and the importance of kind of automation? And then probably the next question is a little bit more on the insights that you actually provide the banks.
Originally, the company started just with categorizing bank transactions. So for example, a Walmart transaction, a supermarket, and Zalando is a clothing store. But over the years, we've extended these capabilities and now much more focused on the user. And this starts with identifying what are your recurring transactions. We predict when the next transaction comes in, at which amount, and we then use this to let the user know how much money do you still have left to spend until you get your next paycheck. And we detect events in a user's financial life, for example, salary raise, a bonus payment, employer change. These are examples where in our personalized financial assistant, we use them to remind the user that this will have an impact on how much taxes they will have to pay. So for example, in Switzerland, you pay the taxes at the end of the year. So if you get a big salary raise during the year, you might forget that you have to put aside more money for your taxes as well. And so in this way, we detect a lot of things in the user's financial life. And the UX part is tremendously important to communicate this to the user in the right way. And also at the same time, enable us to improve our product and improve our algorithms. So we, from the analytics and AI side, we're always interested in getting user feedback to be able to personalize the product more and more. Which of the insights does the user actually want to hear about and which not? and to increase the accuracy of our algorithms. And the UX team then has the big challenge of getting the user to do that and making sure that the UX doesn't get overloaded and that you don't bother the user too much. And this is a balance act where you have to work very closely together. And these are also the two, we call them cornerstones at Contovista, the UX and the AI.
Kevin, how do they intersect? Because when you think about a software engineering practice, you have a Jira ticket, you have a Scrum team, they come together. It's a lot more straightforward. Where AI, there isn't necessarily a straightforward process. There's a lot of rabbit holes, and then you have UI. So how do they intersect?
Yeah, so you described it very well. And I always, on the AI side, I differentiate between tasks which are closer to traditional software engineering and then experiments. And most often with the new algorithms that we build, and this is then also the area where we work the most with UX, new features, these are more experimentation. So we found that it's not something that you can map on a Jira process. It's really important that you're just closely aligned and you have cross-functional teams working on the same feature, independent of whether that's an actual team or whether it's just people from separate teams coming together and working on this issue. And then working it out and finding these solutions. However, I think so one of the beautiful things actually when you do this is not just that you now get these planned features done correctly, but the most beautiful thing is actually that suddenly other solutions, unexpected solutions to other problems actually get solved as well. I think a very good example of that is what we've done for booking text of car transactions, where we came up with a solution to prettify them, something that wasn't a Jira ticket or anything, but it just came out of this close collaboration of the UX and
Kevin,
AI people.
Kevin, for people that don't know booking text and car transactions and what it involves, could you give a bit of an overview about that?
So especially in this specific example, if you think about making a payment with your credit card, if you then look at your credit card statement, or now inside of your app, the booking texts which appear for each transaction, they very often look very ugly, and it's not user-friendly at all. Sometimes they're very long. Sometimes they're all uppercase. You have booking codes in there, like these long numbers, or the cutoff. Other times the focus is actually on the payment provider and not the merchant behind it. So like PayPal or SumUp is an example, and that can confuse some of the users. And what we've done here is we built an algorithm pipeline which takes in this raw booking text and then outputs a much more UX-friendly version, which we call pretty name, which helps then the user to it looks much nicer, and B, to more quickly identify what was actually the merchant here, where I had this transaction. This is actually also a great example of where AI is used in, let's say, unexpected places. So if you think about a fintech company, you wouldn't necessarily think about prettifying booking texts, but
it's a great example of natural language processing, isn't it? In terms of how a real life application that can positively impact users.
Yes, definitely. That's exactly how we see it. So what we did from a technical side is this pipeline consists of a couple of good old regexes, but also some deep learning based modules. And I think it's a great example of how these deep learning NLP models are now usable also for smaller things, and it's not too much work also for a small company to use them in these small features. So, for example, here one of the modules that is in this pipeline is a transformer-based NLP model, which predicts the correct casing for each letter. So, if you have a booking text which is all uppercase, for each letter we turn it into the correct uppercase, lowercase, and this creates visually a much nicer version of the booking text.
So it's a really great example of automation and training. And tell us a little bit what goes involved with the training there.
This is a very good point. So in my opinion, in general, if I could take one step back, I think with all of these great tools that have been built around AI and these open source libraries, one of the biggest values or things that you still have to do is create a training set. How do you create a training set, and how do you maintain it? So here we actually had a very simple or two simple ideas. The one thing is this upper and lower case. It is relatively close to natural language, even though we are working with brand names. So we might be able to pre-train a model on normal natural language. And the other thing is we actually do have a lot of booking text where the upper and lower case is correct. So we can use that as a training set. And yeah, when training the model on that, we very quickly found out that it works much better than creating simple rules. Like, I mean, you could start with a simple rule like take every word, the first character, you make it uppercase and the rest lowercase. But when you go down this rabbit hole, you very quickly realize there's so many edge cases. And an NLP model, or our experience now was that this NLP model is very capable of, on the one side, generalizing some cases. So for example, if you have two letters at the beginning, this is usually a brand name and it's both uppercase, like H&M. But so these things can be generalized, but other things, if you take the example eBay, it's something that the model has to memorize. And usually when you talk about machine learning models and AI research, you're often interested in this generalization aspect. But I think people tend to forget that this memorization aspect is also super useful in many cases to encode information in a robust way with not too much work behind it.
Kevin, how do you stay ahead of the curve? Because the algorithms are changing. NLP is, there's so many different use cases coming across the line. Everyone's so passionate about different libraries. It's hard to build a plane while flying a plane. How do you keep up?
I think you mentioned a really good keyword here, and that is passion. So it all starts with being passionate about it and being interested in it. And then around that, so what we have done at Contovista, so I've set up a weekly learning session with my team. So everyone in the team takes 1 hour a week of work time to learn something new about data science. So this can be a new library, this can be a research paper, a blog post, anything that interests you. And at the end of the week, we all come together and we briefly share what we've learned and recommend others to maybe read it as well or stay away from it. And this way, I've really I've learned so much more about current research than I ever could have done just on my own.
Those lunch and learns are fantastic for people to just dedicate some time to just working on something that's outside of what you're currently doing, and having that dedicated time to focus on applying something that you might not use straight away, but you can use in the future. But you're gaining new knowledge, and there's I think there's an endorphin rush that comes from learning something new. And if you can apply it, tacit knowledge, well, then you're absolutely laughing. And then everyone else, if you have the compounding effect of that, you could have 10, 20, 30 people having 1 to 2 insights, which could have a huge impact as well, which is great.
Definitely. And it's also, it sparks motivation to then go deeper. So a lot of the people in my team, and especially me included, it doesn't stop there. So you might start your next personal project because you read this interesting paper. So for example, in the past, I don't know, I was already a couple of years ago, I was so fascinated by this approach to face recognition. So I built my own face recognition model or knowledge distillation. So I tried that out in my free time. And or most recently, I got a bit more into speech to text. And out of that came an idea to participate in a hackathon with a good friend of mine, where we participated in Hack Zurich. This is a great hackathon here in Zurich, where we built an AI solution to find interesting topic sections in long form podcast episodes. So all of this, it gives you a lot of energy, which you then take, and all of this knowledge. It's so connected. You learn so much, even when you're working on speech to text. You learn so much about AI, which you then use when you're building a campaign model to help banks do better targeting. It's really great.
I've been speaking to Kevin Smith, Head of Analytics and AI at Contovista. It's Mark Kelly, Chief Customer Officer at Alldus International. Kevin, thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you.
AI in Action is brought to you by Alldus International, covering your business's staffing, consulting, and networking needs. Alldus offer an exec search program. Alldus can help you discover how data science and AI can transform your company. With our unrivaled network of C-suite executives and senior AI professionals, we offer retained search services across the US and Europe. Get the Alldus advantage. Become a member of the Alldus community and enjoy some of the following: AI meetups. Once a month, our community gathers to listen to some of the leading experts in the world of data science and AI. Our speakers come from all over the world, including Dublin, Boston, and Frankfurt. We also have our AI mentors. Our experts will provide mentoring to Alldus members. And don't forget our AI in Action podcast. Each week we have guests from all over the world talking us through their education, career, and more. Become an Alldus member and get the Alldus advantage. For more information and to sign up for our newsletter, log on to www.alldus.com. That's www.alldus.com. Alldus International, empowering through AI.